I've come out to the Trim Cane Wildlife Management Area. It's just a little bit north of Starkville on, I think it's Highway 389. It's a state level highway, a little small 2-lane highway that comes north out of town. It's actually Jackson Street, Jackson Avenue in Starkville. So basically you go north Jackson, you're at Highway, I think it's 389. And just a little ways after you drop off, there's kind of a bluff. You can drop off a bit into a river floodplain. Trim Cane Creek runs through there, and so there's this wildlife management area that you can see. It's sort of it's a partnership between Mississippi State, Hale State, Ducks Unlimited, the Mississippi Wildlife Fisheries Parks Department, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. So a lot of partners, state, federal, local partners, came together to put in this wildlife management area that's used for waterfowl management. They do some hunting out here. There are some permitted hunts for waterfowl, maybe some dove hunts, rabbit, but they're not a lot of legal hunting out here, and most of it is permit only. But it's a small little wildlife management area, and I use this a lot for aquatic botany for the field trips. We come out here and do some plant collection and that sort of thing. So I just want to give a little bit of a look around. So this is obviously the sign, and then you come around and there's a gated road here that goes back, and you go down the road and you can go left or right, and basically there are just some impoundments out there that hold water during part of the year. They manage them as a wetland habitat, and then there's some interspersed forested areas like you see on both sides of the road, left and right side of the road here, and then a bunch of open fields and small wetland impoundments. And we're going to go out here today and try to find some rushes for the Rush Identification Lab. So I'm out here looking for rushes, and I saw there's a whole bunch of trash out here in the woods, and I was walking over to check it out, see what was here, and I saw this little guy, or gal, little box turtle hanging out. It's like one of the cool benefits of being out in the woods doing stuff. This cool little, oh wow, and it's got an injury, an old injury that's healed. Check this out. Look right there. Where the shell on this little poor thing is, at some point it's been cut open, but it's healed up, and then it looks like it's, wow, that is heavy, really heavy little box turtle. But check out that shell there. It's been injured and then healed up. I'm gonna put this thing right back down here, put it back where I found it. Hey there. Alright, have a good weekend. Bye-bye. So I'm walking along, again, looking for rushes, and I look down and I see this like mess over here and get really excited because, oh, rushes. They're rushes, you can tell, because of the way they are. That's some video, some YouTube video my kid showed me. There was some guy that was like, oh, you can tell this is, I don't know what it was, an aspen or something, because of the way it is. But anyway, so these are rushes. So they have, if you can see, they have cylindrical or terete. I mentioned in another video, terete, T-E-R-E-T-E is a way of saying round. So they have these round culms. So this is, basically this is a leaf and a stem and a flowering stalk, except this particular one, there are no flowers at the top. But something it does have that's kind of cool, get this to focus for us, is it has this spot here where you can see on the inside something we refer to, you can almost kind of see, but these chambers in here with these diaphragms across, these partitions here, that airspace in the middle is referred to as aerenchyma. It's an A-E-R-E-N-C-H-Y-M-A, aerenchyma. And it's a way that these plants, excellent timing on the truck, the way that plants that live in wetland and aquatic environments get air down to the root systems. But what's been happening here on this plant, more than likely, and I didn't see it happen, but I've seen it in other places, is that there are grasshoppers in here feeding on the tissue on these. And you can see a lot of this. There's some more. Move this one out of the way. There's one right there that something's eating the edge of it off. There's one right there. There's one right here where a lot of it has been eaten. And there was a former professor here at Mississippi State in the biology department. He studied coastal marshes, and he found the same thing down in those marshes where grasshoppers would feed on these leaves. And I'm trying to find, here we go, where the grasshoppers would feed on these things, and they would really consistently feed up near the tip. So they wouldn't feed now down near the base down that way. They wouldn't feed right at the tip, but it was it seems like maybe 10 or 20 centimeters down from the tip, and they would feed, and they would only eat the green stuff off the outside, and they would leave this white spongy material on the inside. And he did some research and actually found that in the part of the leaves in the system where he was working, in that part of the leaves where the grasshoppers would eat, there was a particular amino acid. I don't remember now which one it was, but in that part, the green tissue on the outside, in that region where the grasshoppers would eat, the concentration of that amino acid was higher than in the tissues either above it or down below it. So somehow those grasshoppers, you know, they knew that they needed a particular nutrient, and they would get on the juncus culms. I think they're, and juncus, that's the genus that this rush is in. And I think that was Juncus romerianus that he was looking at there in the coastal marshes. And basically those grasshoppers would hone in on the part of the tissue that had the highest concentration of those amino acids, and only eat the green part from the outside of the leaves in that area. It's really cool, and so I wanted to share that with you. These particular rushes, there's some old clusters of capsules on them, but they're really old, and I think they're too disintegrated to be useful for identifying this in a demonstration. But I did want to show this because it's pretty cool that we have this here in interior and freshwater wetland areas and bottomland forest. I'm actually just walking around in a bottomland forest here near Starkville. But we have the same phenomenon here that he saw in those salt marshes down on the coast some 20 or 30 years ago. So I'm out here walking around in this bottomland forest wetland area at Trim Cane Wildlife Management Area, and it's really cool. I just keep seeing, I'm supposed to be out here looking for rushes, but I keep seeing all kinds of really cool stuff. Something here that I want to share. So I ran across, and this is the second patch of this stuff that I've run across, but this is a species in the mint family. It's Lycopus, and I don't know for sure. There are a couple of them that are closely related. There's one, I think it's Lycopus virginicus maybe, is a species that's really common around here, but there is at least one other one that's really common, but it's in the mint family. Mint, M-I-N-T, like mint, like thin mint cookies, chocolate mint ice cream, peppermint, whatever. It's in that family, and so this is actually, you know, it tastes like mint. So I'm gonna like grab a leaf off of this. Now I don't recommend going out in places and just randomly eating things, because there are plants that are toxic. Even in families where there are things that we eat, things that we grow as crops, there are plants in those families that are at worst kind of noxious, some that are outright toxic. So you want to be really careful, know what you're doing before you eat stuff. But this mint is really cool, and this is actually today the first time I've ever taken the time to actually taste this stuff, which kind of sucks because I've seen a lot of this Lycopus, because it's really common in wetlands here, Mississippi and Alabama. Ran across some of this near the Potomac River up in Maryland. Was that last year? About a year ago, September of 19. But this has a really strong, refreshing, minty flavor. I could see making tea or something out of this would be great. Just chewing on it, like a piece of chewing gum or something, would be awesome. Really refreshing, kind of strong, really cool mint flavor. But the genus on this is Lycopus. I don't remember the common name, but I just call it a mint. I call it lycopus because I'm horrible at remembering remembering common names. But anyway, I want to share that as I ran across it, and back into the woods trying to find some rushes. Made it out of the woods per se. So I came out of the woods just over about there, and I came out and I walked around this clearing here, looking all along the edge, looking for rushes that hadn't been mowed. And then I came and I was walking around here, and I was going to go down this path. There's actually a pond back over there that I'm going to go check for rushes, but I just happened to look in this little area here, a little open area, and when I looked immediately, and you're gonna wonder how in the world, but I looked and immediately I saw an inflorescence or an infructescence of a rush, a juncus species in here. So we're going to come in here, zoom in a little bit, and there's one right here. So those are all capsules from a juncus, and then there's one back here. There are a few more in here, but this is probably the best one in terms of being able to actually see the structure of it. And if we go in here and look at the actual fruit, what we see in this, so where in the grasses and the rushes, when we looked at the fruit, or when we look at the fruit, if you haven't seen the other videos, what we see are kind of basically individual fruit, and they're surrounded by, well, an individual fruit, which is a fruit seed combo. So a caryopsis in the grasses, an achene in the sedges, and then it's going to be associated with some small bract-like things, either a scale in the sedges, or in the grasses there'll be things like glooms and lemmas and pallias. But in the rushes, what we have when we look in here are little capsules, and you can see the one right above my thumbnail there. Looks like it may have opened up and released some seeds. And so in this we have the capsules there, and the capsules in the genus Juncus, which this is in. They have a bunch of seeds in the capsule, in each of the 3 compartments in the capsule. But the other genus that we have here in North America, in the Juncaceae, Luzula, will just have 3 seeds, one in each of the 3 compartments in there. But here's the first rush that I've seen on my walk this afternoon that actually has fruit, flower, and or fruit material that I feel pretty confident that we could take this back and put this under a microscope, and it would be a good one to use to demonstrate working through the key for the Juncaceae, or for the genus Juncus in this case particular. So I had found the first rush, the first one that had material that you actually could put under a microscope and look at, try to figure out what species we might have. And it actually is right back here. So I'd found this one. I'd pulled out a baggie. I was going to grab some material from this plant to take back to put under the microscope and show how to work through the key. And as soon as I turned around to squat back down and grab some of that material, I saw sitting right in front of me this thing. And it turns out this is another rush. It's a different species of Juncus. Hopefully you can tell from looking at that. This is really different from the one that we saw right over there. Get back in focus again. So in this one, we have a bunch of capsules all kind of aggregated together in what in the key they're probably going to refer to as a head, spherical head or globose head or compacted head of capsules, something like that in the key. So this is really cool. So side by side here we have 2 different, I can get that in focus again, we have 2 different species in the genus Juncus. It does not want to focus for me, but anyway, we have, put my hand behind there. So there we go, cool. So we see 2 separate ones. So the one on the right has these clusters of capsules, and then the one on the left, they're more or less individually. They're in, loosely aggregated into maybe pairs or triplets, but 2 very different architectures for the inflorescence or infructescence in these 2 different species of Juncus. was out here 2 weeks ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, collecting plants for for the videos and for a lab I was doing on sedge identification, out here being at Trim Cane WMA. And when I was over at a pond, there's a pond that's just over here, a little piece that I'm going to go to in a minute and try to find at least one more species of juncus for the juncus identification. But when I was out here, I got to notice in these wallowed areas that were in the edge of the pond, and I was looking at them, you know, and initially I was kind of hopeful, because I'm weird like that. I was kind of hopeful, ooh, maybe they're alligators. But I went up there and looked, and they did not look like alligators. It looked to me like sort of thing that you would see when there are hogs in the area. And I know from personal experience, because of living about maybe 5 miles away from here when I was actually a student at Mississippi State, that there are hogs in the area. And so I thought, well, maybe they're having a hog issue out here. And I meant to ask the guy who manages the WMA, hey, do you guys have hogs out there? You know, just in case they need help getting rid of the hogs. And so anyway, so I'm out here, and I've been over in the woods back here walking around looking for rushes, and I followed the trail back here, and as soon as I came around the corner back there, I look up ahead, and what do I see? Bam, a hog trap. So why are they trapping hogs? Well, if you don't know, hogs are, much like some of the plants I've been talking about, they are incredibly damaging invasive species. So they've been introduced throughout the world. When the early European explorers were sailing around in ships, they would take hogs and they would turn them loose. People introduce hogs for hunting. So we have like this mixture of sort of farm type and then wild boar type hogs that just get released all over the place. You can put them in pens, but then they escape. People purposely introduce them for hunting, and so they're just all over the place, and they do a lot of damage to natural ecosystems, because they get in and they're rooting around in the soil and wallowing in wetlands like the place over here. And so they can just do a lot of damage, and they reproduce like crazy. They have, I can't remember from back when I used to actually do a little bit of hog hunting. I don't know, maybe 3 litters per year, and they'll have 12 or 16 babies per litter, and so they just reproduce like crazy, and they can be a huge problem. And so in a lot of times in places like a wildlife management area like Trim Cane here and other places, there'll be active management programs to try and trap the things out of here. And so I actually ran up on a hog trap while I'm out walking around looking for rushes, but I wanted to share that with you real quick. I made it to the pond that I was walking toward out here. Got out of the woods, found a couple of rushes, found a hog trap. Now made it out to the pond. This is one of the areas, I think they actually out here, they do some netting for waterfowl management. So they set out, I think this is one of the areas they use, they set out some traps, catch ducks, collect data on them. I don't know if they do any banding out here, but I know they do have some, or they used to have some net traps set up out here. Anyway, this is one of the ponds that's part of the wildlife management area, and as I suspected, growing along the levee, so the levee is back here, it's kind of a road on top of it, and so it goes all the way down this one side and across, and then it goes down the other side over there to make this pond here. But along the levee, I came out here, and there's a pretty sizable patch of juncus right here. And so I'm going to grab some of these, but I just want to zoom in here real quick and just kind of show what the inflorescences or infructescences look like on this. It's this huge, massive cluster of capsules growing up near the tip of these individual culms here. There would have been, but it's, I guess, dried and kind of, oh, here's a good example right here. So the culm itself goes up past this cluster of capsules a good ways, and that's actually one of the diagnostic characteristics within the genus Juncus is whether it has this, I think they refer to this as a bract, B-R-A-C-T, and so in a lot of the keys you go through there, and it'll talk about a bract exceeding the inflorescence and appearing as a continuation of the culm or something like that. Maybe an exact wording, I'm not sure. But anyway, there's the cluster of capsules, the fruit, and then that bract going on past. It's also round. The culm is. It's kind of thick, pretty sizable. And so there's a nice little patch. And I'm going to grab some material here that I'll put under the microscope later when we work through the juncus key. So found 3 species of juncus. I'm going to use those in working through keys under the microscope back in my home office. But I wanted to share with you like one of the many sort of fun type adventures you can have while you're out here. So I mentioned when I was talking about the hog trap, which by the way, it's right back there. Back here, this is the pond where I had seen the place where the hogs had been wallowing around, like they had dug out some big, kind of pretty sizable spots along the levee on the other side, back over here. And so I was down here walking around. You can kind of see my tracks around through here, where I had collected some pieces off of that last juncus plant that I showed, the big one that was growing all down there. And while I was digging around inside this clump of juncus, pulling out some of the inflorescences to stick under the microscope later, I was standing there and I was pulling them out, and I started hearing this noise that sounded like water running through a pipe, like a giant bathtub or something draining. And I thought that was odd because this didn't seem like the place in a levee to put a culvert or anything. So I stopped what I was doing. I was sitting there, I was listening, and I was kind of looking on the backside of this clump of juncus. And then all of a sudden, these wasps came flying up out of there. And fortunately, I managed. You can see. I mean, literally right here. This is the trail. I just bolted out of there. It's like, okay, well, I grabbed the stuff that I had, because I have to have that, right, to do the demonstration. But I grabbed that stuff and I took off running. I ran through a patch back here of I think it's called rice cut grass, Lyrzia orzoides. It has these really sharp scabrous edges on the blades, and so my legs are pretty like scratched up and itchy. But I did not get actually attacked and stung by an entire nest full of wasps that were living in the juncus plant. So that's good. A little victory there. Another victory that I got three different species of juncus to use in the demonstration. And you know, I don't think I'm going to push my luck anymore today and see if I do run up on a bunch of wild hogs or alligators, or maybe all of them collectively walking around carrying a beehive or something. So I'm going to get out of here and head back to the house and take a look at these things under the microscope.